All right, it is Monday, the week of March 25th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Let's look at the price action for the indexes last week. Starting with the NQ, what are your thoughts on last week's price action?
Well, last week we did barely get all-time high, and then we had a little bit of a sell-off here. But we so far have held the top of the range here that we've gained. So looking pretty good right where it is. When the market opens here in about 20 minutes, we could see some action towards the upside, but as well as the down here. We don't want to see this zone here lost if you're taking longs. But I think we both like it for up, as well as if it were to keep coming down, I think there's some really good opportunities for longs in there as well. We've got this box here that's still pretty valid, and it would need to come down and test these levels first, but there's lots of opportunities in here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that last week was obviously like a huge gain week, making it a new all-time high, even though we didn't hold it. That's still relevant price action, right? Trades were executed up there, so definitely a valid new all-time high. At this point, we're just looking for a hold at a higher low. That could be here, like we're pointing out, or it could be lower, like you pointed out. We got this line just from the failure that kind of started sending us down to these lows that we've reversed from, so that's kind of how we got that on the 1 hour. I really like this box. This is kind of the section where, after the initial bottom got put in, we got our first sort of higher high after the fact, and then we retested the origin of that move. So essentially the area that sent us down to this low is kind of the range of that box that we have there, and we can see that in the past that's even further reinforced by the fact that it's been respected many times. So I still think that if we come all the way back down here, it's on the higher time frame, it would just look like another higher low, which is exactly what we're looking for longs at this point. Just again, even if we come all the way back down there, nothing on the higher time frames has been violated for the uptrend, so that's why we're still looking for longs. Don't really have anything else to add. It looks pretty obvious to me.
All right.
What do you think about the S&P?
It's got a very similar look. It hasn't come down quite as far, but we've got this box here. We expect it to come down here. It does have a little bit of a regain look, but it pretty quickly lost it. So if we don't see it come back up above to 52.90 here, we do expect down, right?
Yeah.
Which levels are you interested in?
I mean, I think that it's even more obvious that, it's just longs on this chart as well. I mean, where the NASDAQ maybe is a little bit more choppy, this chart is certainly a clear upward definition. I mean, if this was the level that we tried to break out, and we just did, then it makes sense to use that as the next retest to send us higher potentially. So I would say that I pretty much see the same thing as you. This box here is sort of the failure that sent us up, so it would make sense to come back and test that for higher. Doesn't mean that we can't see lower, but that's the most obvious level on the chart so far. And then holding the low of the range could also be viable at 5,230 is also always a possibility, but we'll have to see. I mean, there's nothing else to really say. I mean, the charts kind of look the same, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, other than that, let's look at the small caps, which, everything kind of gained last week after the Fed meeting. We kind of talked about how that would be a big volatility event. Same thing for the small caps, gained to a current, high on this leg, on this upward move here, so that was nice. But more importantly, we've kind of definitively gained above the initial short origin that we had talked about from, a couple of years ago, this being the most important level. So on the daily and the 4 hour, we've kind of starting to close up in that range. That's good. It's still kind of the same as every other chart, right? We're looking for more retests up there to send us higher. We could see that come all the way back to 2080 or 2043, or on a higher time frame, even down here, potentially at 2020, it would still look fine. If you want to see continuation in the short term, we wouldn't really want to do any losing of this 2080 level, in my opinion. But I think the important thing here is that this is pretty good strength to the upside, right? We're continuing to get closes up in the higher areas of this range, whereas we struggled to do that in the last few years. You can bet that there's going to be a ton of shorts. If we start moving through this level, all those shorts are going to start closing, buying to close, and that'll pump the price through here. I wouldn't be surprised that if we can start getting closes higher in this box, the mid 2150s, something like that, we'll see a huge short covering rally on this to send it up maybe another 200 points. That's very much on the table in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks primed to go. In my opinion, it would look. I mean, obviously, I'd smash that long right there, right at the bottom of that wick. It's just
looks good
perfect.
For a little quick trade, right?
And so, obviously that could be what takes it up, but I'm looking at this week. I'm thinking it might come back down and test this area.
Yeah, I'm right with you.
And I think that would be this right here, or anywhere in here. It looks like a big box, but that would be a 10-point box, not that big a deal, and you'd be able to go in the lower time frames and really find a good long to take there once it comes down and regains.
Yeah, and that's the level that it had been attempting to kind of hold and gain above, and then when we finally did, we ripped up. So that's the failure. It makes sense that we would retest the failure and then potentially move higher. So definitely a really good area to look for a long. I very much agree with that. Obviously we kind of have the benefit of today's price action, but just kind of making potentially a hold based on the price action from Sunday. So I do like your long idea here. We could even see that level like right there. If that gets retested, that's good for a long. So we could see that play out, but we'll have to see what the rest of the week has in store for us. Gold, it's obviously nothing really has changed about this chart. We're kind of still, last week we made fresh all-time highs above 2200, so that looks good for a gain. We did end up losing it, but we are still holding essentially the failure that sent us up there, right? So we're still holding that zone. We kind of really want to see closes above 2180 for continuation, even though these have been gained for continuation for that to happen. That doesn't mean that we can't start seeing lower, just as potential areas to kind of slurp some liquidity. Like any of these tests on the way up could be viable. I think that you had pointed out a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, that we could see all the way down here, which was the initial failure that sent us all the way up, again, to the fresh all-time high at the time. That's very much still on the table on the daily chart for putting in a higher low. Even on the daily chart here would still look very good, and then we could use all that liquidity to kind of send us up on fresh all-time highs. But other than that, we'll have to see what happens. I still think that we're going to see this gained, and then potentially move closer to 2500. There's our fib projection on there. You see anything differently?
Nope. So we'd have to lose this spot here before this comes back into play, but it's absolutely, until we're closing up here, this is very much a possibility. So the domino that could take us down to those levels there. I like it.
Yeah, looks good. What do you think about the Dow?
It's just coming down to test the highs that we've gained. So if we can hold this zone right here, we do expect all-time high again. Even if it were to come down below the wicks here, that'd be a really great hold, because this is a very interesting level here that produced the low here and the low here. So this is a real good spot. It is tested on the 4-hour here, but it could still come down and hold that area and produce a higher high. So I wouldn't be looking to long until it's down here and we've seen some price action.
Yeah, I like the high of the range there. Also, obviously, the level that was gained and held and sent us up is also decent. But you've marked this out before we started talking about here on this box. This is essentially the beginning of the reversal, on the shorter time frame. But this is kind of the first higher high after losing these levels, so it would make sense that we could come back down and test that, do some regaining, and then potentially see new highs. So I could even see something as down here on the box, so that's all totally valid for higher. Most importantly, is we've definitively made a new all-time high, as we're seeing a lot of that recently, but until we put in a lower low on some of these higher time frames. It's just gonna keep looking like gaining. There's nothing to worry about, I would say, until we lose 39,000 on the Dow in terms of talking about trend loss. So yeah, just looks like more longs. It sounded like a broken record, but the whole market is trending up. So what are you gonna do?
Long it.
Exactly.
At proper levels.
At proper levels. Speaking of proper levels, oil, nice hold. Made a new high on this leg, and then ended up actually got some closes below, but we've ended up closing back in the range and moving back higher. At this point, our idea of potentially seeing back over here at 90s, 91 right there, the previous failure that we have marked out, certainly on the table and looks stronger every day. I could see, and I think we talked about this, the juiciest level right now if you wanted to get in on oil, these longs, 81.20, kind of the area that attempted to hold to potentially move us lower. We broke out. Could see this retrace, hold, and then keep going for higher, potentially sending us to a new high on this leg. I think this looks like quintessential uptrend. Definitely a nice area to take along at 81.20. What do you think?
Yep, I see the exact same thing. What I would see is it come down, lose it, and then reject and come down and do something to that effect. Yeah. And the opportunities on the chart would be shorting here and longing here. And that doesn't mean exactly 81.20. It's just we'll have more information throughout the week and as this progresses. But that's the kind of look we're looking to long these and short these.
Yeah, so if 81.20 gets lost, we were looking to see it quickly regain and then a retest hold where you would take your long at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Looks like we're seeing the same thing there. The dollar had a pretty wild week last week. So immediately on the Fed meeting, it totally tanked about a point. And then the next day it regained and then some into Friday. So we're definitively gained back up to the point where we had kind of marked out we want to really start to see this come back up. Otherwise, we're potentially talking about losing the uptrend on this potential reversal. But we've regained again. I think that we still want to see a close kind of above here. You could pull that up there a little bit. That's the area that was gained that was then lost and sent us down. Still, that doesn't invalidate this gain. I'm just saying that if we're going to make a new high above this high, this level at 104.75-ish, that's kind of the level that needs to be regained before we can actually attempt to take out this previous high. But we could even see this come lower before that happens. This is a valid gain. I could see this coming back down here to 103.9, closing back above, and then kind of doing one of these. So doing what it needs to do to potentially continue the uptrend, put in a higher high on this leg. But we'll have to see kind of more price action this week if we're going to hold it 103.9 or if we're just going to keep going up. We'll have to see. What do you think?
My thoughts are exactly that line you just drew. Is hold 103 and then go back up and regain. That's exactly what I've got in mind.
Cool. I mean, yeah, it's kind of just it's been volatile recently, but it's kind of grinding higher. So until we regain this, we can't really say, because this does look like a lower low look. But it was a nice hold, so we need some more definitive price action to say for sure. This isn't really a major level, so we'll take that out. But what do you think about the banks? Another kind of volatile week last week, but still closing within our level to gain, level to hold ranges.
Yeah, it came down and then pumped up. I would have loved to have seen it go just a little bit lower and then go. It makes me feel like this is just going to be some short action here, and we might put in a lower low. But what we did have is these closes up here. It wasn't quite as definitive as we'd like, so I'm going to call that a test. And we may need to see a little bit lower here before we can get above 50.54 again.
Yeah, I see what you see. I mean, to me, these are closes kind of below, but if you consider the wick, it's still really a higher low, and then this is a lower high. So we're kind of ranging. Right. I think that we, like you were saying, we need to either see a loss of this level and then continue down, or a brief loss of this level, you know, maybe tagging the low of this wick and then closing back above to try to regain. Or we could, you know, hold somewhere higher and then just break above this level to gain here. If we lost this level and didn't regain it, we'd be talking about the box, yeah? You would agree with that?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of these two boxes, so that would look like more of a failure to the downside kind of look, but we're gonna have to see if we can hold in kind of this area. I would say this range is probably really the area that we need to see it put in either a higher low or a quick loss and then regaining and moving higher. Otherwise, we could end up seeing lower. But those are kind of my thoughts. You have anything to add at the end? I think we covered pretty much everything.
Me too.
Cool. Well, thanks for tuning into the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. See you next week.
Till next time.